Welcome back to Stoic Capsule, the place where we sharpen our minds, protect our peace, and learn how to live unshakable lives through timeless wisdom. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your energy is being drained, but you couldn't quite put your finger on why? It's not always your heavy workload. It's not the economy. It's not even your past mistakes. More often than not, the quiet thief of your peace is closer than you think. It's the people you allow into your circle. Some of them smile at you, but secretly poison your thoughts. Some call themselves friends, yet quietly sabotage your growth. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your best years surrounded by people who pull you down, fear your strength, and drown your clarity in endless noise. So, ask yourself, who are you giving access to your mind, your time, your soul? Because the truth is, your life is shaped by the emotional energy you allow in. Epicurus once warned us, associate with those who help you become your best self. That isn't just philosophy, it's survival. In a world full of emotional vampires, chronic victims, sweet-talking manipulators, and even toxic optimists, you cannot afford to keep entertaining people who drain you, disguise chaos as passion, or leave you wondering why you feel tired every single day. That's why in today's video, we're going to expose 11 types of people who will quietly destroy your self-worth, hijack your peace, and make you doubt your own power. More importantly, I'll show you how to cut ties not with anger or bitterness, but with calm emotional intelligence, self-mastery, and boundaries so sharp that no one can cross them. Because here's the hard truth. Not everyone deserves access to your life. And the sooner you realize that, the stronger, sharper, and more untouchable you will become. So if you're ready to stop entertaining what weakens you, hit that like button to support this Stoic revolution we're building, and subscribe so you never miss the tools that will protect your peace and elevate your power. Let's begin. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And nothing tests that more than dealing with the first toxic type, the chronic complainer. You know this person, they don't scream, they don't lash out, but every single conversation with them feels like acid slowly dripping into your mind. They complain about their job. They complain about their partner. They complain about the government, the weather, society, everything but themselves. And the most dangerous part, they never change. Complaining is not just their habit, it's their weapon. What looks like harmless venting is actually emotional sabotage. At first, you think it's nothing. We all vent now and then, right? But the complainer doesn't seek solutions. They complain to reinforce a worldview built on bitterness, helplessness, and blame. And if you're not vigilant, their poison seeps into you. Suddenly, your job feels inadequate, your relationships feel flawed, and the peace you once carried begins to crack. This is no accident. This is emotional contamination. Marcus Aurelius prepared himself for this exact type when he wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Not to be pessimistic, but to be prepared. Because a Stoic doesn't expect the world to be clean. They expect to stand firm in the dirt without letting it stain their soul. Following from the first type, the chronic complainer, we step into why their presence is so dangerous. To your mental clarity and inner peace, complainers are not perfect people, but they stubbornly refuse to take responsibility for their imperfections. They resist self-discipline, reject emotional regulation, and carry resentment as if it were a badge of honor. In Stoic philosophy, chronic complaining is a clear sign of a weak, untrained mind. A mind that cannot distinguish between what can be controlled and what cannot. Why must you distance yourself from these individuals? Not because they are inherently evil, but because they are infected. Emotional infection spreads silently. One small seed of negativity, one persistent rant, and before you know it, your confidence wavers. Minor annoyances feel overwhelming, and your peace begins to erode. They make you feel guilty simply for maintaining your calm because in their world, peace is a threat. So how did you handle them the Stoic way? First, set clear psychological boundaries. Through strategic silence, you do not need to argue, correct, or justify yourself. Stop feeding the fire. The next time a complainer revisits the same grievance for the third time, ask calmly, "That sounds frustrating. What are you planning to do about it?" If they stumble, deflect, or quickly change the subject, you have revealed the truth. They do not want solutions, they want attention and sympathy. Second, remind yourself that your energy is sacred. Just because someone is venting does not mean you owe them your focus or your inner peace. Think of your calm as a form of wealth, one that you have the right and the responsibility to protect with absolute discipline. Third, create emotional distance. If cutting ties completely isn't an option, reduce the depth of engagement. Engage, yes, but do not allow their chaos to infiltrate your soul. You are not anyone's unpaid therapist, especially not for someone addicted to their own misery. Here are some reflection questions to sharpen your awareness. Who in your life leaves you emotionally drained after every conversation? Are you holding space for someone who has no intention of growing? When was the last time your mood shifted because of another person's negativity? Emotional intelligence is not just about listening, it's about knowing when to leave the room. The complainer does not seek change, they seek validation, and if you're not careful, you will become their next target for blame. Your peace is your power. Protect it relentlessly, as Seneca once said. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Now, consider the second type, the excuse maker. Have you ever known someone who always has a reason why they haven't started, why they cannot change, or why life is just too hard? They don't lack intelligence, they don't lack opportunity, yet they constantly blame circumstances, the past, or timing itself. Excuses are far more dangerous than outright failure, because they subtly infect your mindset with doubt, complacency, and a diluted version of your potential. Excuses do not look toxic. In fact, they often sound rational. I would do it, but now's not the right time. Not everyone is meant to succeed. That's just my personality. But the truth is harsher. Excuses are fear wearing a mask. They offer a false sense of comfort so that growth and discomfort can be avoided. That comfort comes at a price: your ambition, your self-worth, your evolution. The Stoics warned us about this. Seneca taught that time is not the enemy, wasting it is. And one of the subtlest ways people waste it is by surrounding themselves, or allowing themselves to become excuse makers, slowly convincing themselves that limits exist where none truly do. Next, we encounter the excuse maker, a person whose entire life is built around justifying inaction. They have perfected the art of rationalizing why they haven't started, why they can't change, or why circumstances are always against them. But why is this so dangerous from a Stoic perspective? Stoicism is founded on the principle that your power lies entirely in what you can control: your thoughts, your effort, your discipline, and your attitude. The excuse maker hands all of that power over to chance, to circumstance, or to other people, all while convincing themselves and anyone who listens that this is simply realistic. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that your mind and your response to events is yours alone. The excuse maker lives in denial of this truth. Spend too much time around them, and you start lowering your own standards just to match their comfort zone. Being near their energy is like trying to run a marathon with weights tied to your ankles. You begin to think, maybe I'm pushing too hard. Maybe self-discipline is too extreme. Maybe average is actually okay. And before you know it, you've surrendered your potential, mistaking mediocrity for safety. Here's the Stoic reality. Growth requires friction. Self-mastery demands responsibility. And you cannot cultivate a high-performance mindset in an environment that rewards excuses and punishes effort. So how did you handle excuse makers the Stoic way? First, lead by example, not confrontation. Stoics don't argue, they demonstrate. Let your habits, your consistency, and your discipline speak for you. You don't need to prove them wrong. Simply keep showing what's possible through your actions. Second, watch your inner dialogue. Excuse makers often embed their mindset into your language without you even noticing. Be mindful when phrases like, "I'll try," "I'll get to it when I can," "Now's not the right moment" creep into your speech. Replace them with, "I will," "This matters," "Let's go." This is emotional intelligence in action, choosing language that reinforces action rather than avoidance. Third, build boundaries around your energy. You don't have to cut everyone off completely, but you must protect your time and mental space from those who normalize self-sabotage. If someone's constant justification begins to bleed into your focus, pull back and preserve your clarity. Here are some reflection questions to sharpen your awareness. Who in your life always has a reason not to take action? Have their words ever made you question your own ambition or pace? Are you making decisions based on your values and logic? Or are you subconsciously yielding to someone else's fear? Remember, excuse makers aren't inherently bad people, but they are dangerous to your discipline. They teach you to make peace with mediocrity, to soften your edge, and to delay your greatness until life magically becomes perfect. The Stoics understood that life will never be perfect, but your effort can be relentless. Choose action. Choose effort. And if walking alone is what it takes to maintain your integrity and momentum, walk with pride. As Marcus Aurelius said, you always have the option of having no opinion. Finally, Consider the next type of toxic energy, the gossiper. You probably know this person. They always know who's dating whom, who failed, who messed up, and who said what. Their conversations are coated in charm, laced with secrets, and steeped in insecurity. On the surface, they may seem entertaining, but beneath that charm lies a deeper truth. Gossip is the currency of the emotionally weak, and it is far from harmless. Next, we meet the gossiper, a type of person whose energy can quietly corrode your mind if you're not careful. Gossip isn't just idle chatter, it's a pattern of thinking rooted in judgment, envy, and comparison. And if you spend enough time around it, you risk becoming it. You begin questioning people based on rumors rather than facts. You waste mental energy on stories instead of results. You train your mind to look outward constantly, instead of inward. That is the real cost of gossip. It disconnects you from your values and steals focus from your personal growth. The Stoics warned us about this. They believed that a life of virtue begins with one simple, yet profound choice. Focus only on what is within your control. Gossip thrives on the exact opposite. It feeds on what other people are doing, saying, or failing at, none of which you can control. Here's something few will tell you. People who gossip to you will inevitably gossip about you. You are only temporarily useful in their narrative, and that is the real danger. Gossipers create a false sense of intimacy through shared judgment. They bond by tearing others down. And if you participate, even passively, you aren't just complicit in their weakness. You weaken your own. Every second spent in gossip is a second not spent building self-worth, strengthening character, or exercising discipline over your own mind. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Gossip keeps you stuck in observation mode rather than action mode. It's always easier to talk about someone else's mistakes than to confront your own. Gossip hijacks your emotional intelligence. These individuals are skilled manipulators, presenting opinions as facts, weaponizing charm to command attention, and subtly shifting your focus from self-awareness to comparison. But your emotional intelligence grows when you recognize this manipulation and refuse to participate. You don't need to fight gossip, you just need to outgrow it. So how do you handle gossipers the Stoic way? 1. Don't engage, withdraw with elegance. Silence is the most powerful move. If someone begins gossiping, respond with, "I don't really know them well enough to say," or even better, "Let's talk about something that actually helps us grow." You don't need to scold them, just refuse to feed into mental laziness. 2. Refocus on what you control. You can't stop people from talking, but you can stop your mind from absorbing the noise. Every moment spent dwelling on someone else's flaws is a moment of delayed self-development, and that's a luxury you cannot afford. If mastery is your goal, 3. Audit your environment. Ask yourself, who in my life thrives on the downfall of others? Who constantly talks about people, but rarely discusses ideas, growth, or meaningful goals? Then act accordingly. You are never obligated to entertain weakness, no matter how charming it may seem. Here are reflection questions to sharpen your inner clarity. Have you ever found yourself repeating gossip only to later regret it? Are your Conversations focused on other people's lives or your own purpose? Do you respect yourself enough to walk away from unproductive dialogue? Strong minds discuss ideas. Weak minds discuss people. Gossipers don't need your judgment, they need your absence. Every second spent feeding their drama is a second you starve your own discipline. In the Stoic life, you simply don't have time for distraction. Your mission is clear. You have a mind to protect and inner peace to preserve. So the next time someone whispers gossip or judgment in your direction, remember this silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom in motion. As Epictetus said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Your energy, your focus, your clarity, these are the real treasures. And they deserve careful guarding. Now, let's talk about the envious, the people whose silence speaks louder than words. They're the ones who don't clap when you win, the ones who don't respond when you share good news, the ones who look you in the eye and secretly hope you fail. Keeping them close isn't just uncomfortable, they quietly chip away at your peace, your confidence, and your sense of worth. Envy doesn't roar, it creeps. It doesn't always show up as criticism or insults. Sometimes it wears a mask. Backhanded compliments, fake smiles, sudden distance, or subtle questions like, "Aren't you doing too much?" The envious don't attack your weaknesses. They target your strengths, because your growth, your progress, your courage reminds them of the paths they've chosen not to take, and deep down, that truth hurts. Why is envy so destructive? The Stoics called it irrational because it focuses on what others have rather than what you can become. Envy steals attention from your effort, your discipline, your virtue, and shifts it towards someone else's outcomes, achievements, or possessions. Epictetus reminds us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Growth is about detaching from public validation. It's about focusing on your own inner development, not constantly measuring yourself against others. But the envious ignore this code. They measure their worth by comparison, and when you rise, they feel small. Instead of rising with you, they attempt subtly, consistently, sometimes cruelly, to pull you down to their level. Here's the emotional toll of tolerating envy too long. You start to shrink yourself to make them comfortable. You hesitate before sharing your joy. You downplay your achievements so you don't appear too much. Slowly, without realizing it, you begin to believe your light is a burden. But that's not humility. That's self-sabotage. The longer you tolerate envy, the more you abandon the full expression of your potential. You were not born to dim your light, you were born to live aligned with your purpose. And that includes celebrating your growth without guilt. So how did you handle envy the Stoic way? 1. Practice detachment. Their emotions are not your responsibility. If someone resents your growth, that's their wound to heal, not yours to fix. You can be kind. You can be graceful, but you are never accountable for managing another person's insecurity. 2. Protect your peace by protecting your wins. Not everyone deserves access to your victories. It's okay to share less. It's okay to grow quietly until you find a circle that genuinely celebrates, rather than competes. This is emotional intelligence in action, knowing who you can trust with your joy and who will turn it into discomfort. 3. Replace envy with admiration, both for yourself and for others. When you see someone succeed, let your first instinct be curiosity, not comparison. Ask yourself, what can I learn from their journey? And when you succeed, celebrate it without shame. A high-performance mindset isn't just about discipline or achievement, it's also about self-respect. It's about knowing who and what deserves your attention, and protecting your energy from subtle sabotage. Here are some reflection questions to sharpen your awareness. Who in your life goes quiet or seems uncomfortable when you share good news? Have you ever dulled your own shine just to avoid triggering someone else's insecurity? Are the people around you genuinely cheering for your success or secretly competing with you? Your achievements will test more relationships than your failures ever will. That's a hard truth, but one worth accepting. Envy is never about you. It's about what someone else refuses to confront within themselves. But if you keep excusing their energy, their mindset will slowly infect your own. You might start believing that confidence is arrogance, ambition is selfishness, and staying small is the price you pay for peace. Stoicism reminds us, true peace doesn't come from shrinking. It comes from standing tall, with clarity, virtue, and an iron mind. So the next time someone can't celebrate your wins, walk away. Real friends don't fear your light, they rise with it. Now, let's talk about another silent destroyer, the hot-tempered. We all know someone like this, the person who snaps at waiters, slams doors when things don't go their way, turns every disagreement into a battlefield, and leaves emotional debris wherever they go. They confuse outbursts with strength, but here's the truth. A person ruled by anger isn't powerful, they are possessed. If you stay around them too long, you risk becoming reactive, unstable, and weak yourself. Anger is not a flex, it's a loss of command. In modern culture, we often glorify rage. Movies, music, and even politics portray outbursts as passion or power. But the Stoics saw it differently. Seneca warned that anger is a brief madness. Control it, or it will control you. Why? Because anger makes you easy to manipulate. It clouds judgment, trades long-term wisdom for short-term domination, and ultimately enslaves the mind. In short, anger is the emotion of the undisciplined. Why do hot-tempered people violate Stoic principles? At their core, Stoicism is about self-mastery, the ability to govern your own mind, no matter what the world throws at you. But the hot-tempered live in constant emotional exposure. Someone disrespects them, they explode. Plans change, they crumble. Delays, they erupt. That's not power, it's predictability, and predictability is weakness. If the world can provoke you at will, you've surrendered control. Their environment becomes a trap. Being around anger long enough conditions you to normalize chaos. You brace for explosions, walk on eggshells, and justify their outbursts. The psychological cost is high. Your emotional safety erodes. Your nervous system stays on constant alert. And you start reacting to life instead of responding with clarity. Even worse, you may begin to believe that reaction is power when in truth, reaction is surrender. So how did you handle the hot-tempered the Stoic way? 1. Master yourself first. Before trying to manage them, you don't fight fire with fire. The Stoic doesn't match rage with rage, they disarm chaos with composure. When someone explodes, observe, breathe, and detach. This isn't weakness, it's emotional intelligence under pressure. 2. Withdraw your emotional availability. Anger addicts thrive on your reaction. They provoke, push, and manipulate, all to justify their own behavior. Don't hand them the fuel they crave. Respond with clarity, or sometimes not at all. Let them burn out in the fire they've built around themselves. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Your power lies not in proving them wrong, but in preserving your own calm. 3. Choose peace over proximity. If someone's anger consistently invades your mental space, walk away not out of hatred, but out of principle. You don't need to fix them. Your responsibility is to protect yourself. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. And when dealing with the emotionally volatile, these boundaries are non-negotiable. Here are some reflection questions to strengthen your inner restraint. Who in your life cannot go a day without losing control? Have you ever found yourself reacting more sharply simply because they made it feel normal? Do you confuse silence with weakness, or do you recognize it as power? Remember, he who angers you controls you. Here's what no one tells you. Anger looks powerful until it destroys everything it touches. Careers, relationships, reputations. Peace they all suffer in its wake. People ruled by rage eventually run out of companions willing to endure their storms. The Stoics knew the calmest person in the room is often the strongest. Why? Because they don't waste energy proving power. They embody it. So, if someone in your circle constantly burns hot, let them rage alone. You weren't made for war. You were made for mastery. Remember Marcus Aurelius' timeless reminder. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Now, imagine walking into a room, and there they are, the drama magnets. Tears, chaos, accusations. Everything urgent, everything personal, everything about them. You listen, console, problem solve, but it never ends. You aren't in a friendship. You're stuck in a storm that doesn't belong to you. Drama isn't emotion, it's emotional manipulation. Drama magnets don't just feel things deeply, they create chaos to control connection. Minor issues escalate into crises, multiple people get dragged in, and they rotate roles: victim, hero, villain. Sometimes all in the same day. Why? Because drama feeds them, it gives attention, relevance, and a false sense of importance for you. It steals something far more precious: emotional clarity. It depletes your peace and pulls you out of alignment with your values. What Stoicism teaches about emotional chaos is simple. Don't react, respond. Drama magnets violate that principle with every breath. They need your reaction as fuel. But the Stoic mind doesn't play that game. It doesn't get baited. It doesn't fight battles it didn't choose. The moment you react to drama, you've already lost your discipline. And without discipline, your peace is up for grabs. Living in someone else's chaos comes with a hidden cost. Being close to a drama magnet feels like constant fatigue. You overthink conversations that should have been simple. You feel guilty for setting boundaries. or even for needing space. They teach you, subtly, that calm is cold, silence is betrayal, and self-focus is selfish. But here's the Stoic truth. Peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. So how did you handle the drama magnet? The Stoic way. 1. Stop trying to fix them. They don't want solutions, they want fuel, attention, and control. 2. Practice the art of detached silence. Don't defend. Don't explain. Don't absorb their negativity. Let them vent, spiral, and stew in their own fears while you remain the still center in the eye of their storm. As Thomas Carlyle said, silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves. By staying silent and composed, you transform your energy into a shield, preserving your clarity and your focus. 3. Set psychological boundaries and enforce them. Saying I need space is not enough. You must live it, embody it, and make it non-negotiable. Cut the cord between their chaos and your identity. You can care about someone without carrying their emotional baggage. Your peace is sacred, and it requires discipline to maintain it. Reflection questions to sharpen your inner freedom. Who in your life turns every moment into an emotional spotlight on themselves? Do you feel drained, guilty, or out of control after interacting with them? Have you mistaken drama for depth or volatility for connection? Emotional maturity isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about returning to clarity. The drama magnet doesn't want peace, they crave attention. If you don't protect yourself, you'll confuse exhaustion for love. But the Stoics remind us, peace is not found by dodging conflict. It is found by refusing to step into unnecessary storms. So, the next time someone tries to drag you into their chaos, don't just stay grounded, remain sovereign and unshaken. Then there's another type, even more insidious, the quiet destroyer, the naysayer. They don't shout, they don't throw tantrums like a drama magnet. They don't explode like the hot-tempered. They are calm, polite, reasonable, and corrosive. They cloak doubt in logic, wrap fear in advice, and whisper just enough to make you question yourself. The naysayer doesn't attack your dreams head-on. Instead, they murmur, "Are you sure that's realistic? What if it doesn't work out? That's a bit risky, don't you think?" It sounds helpful, even rational, but it's poison disguised as concern. Their power is subtle yet profound. They don't force you to doubt them, they make you doubt yourself. Slowly, you start second-guessing your vision. You dial down your ambition. You trade courage for caution, not because it's right, but because someone else never believed in you. Why naysayers violate Stoic principles? Stoicism teaches us to filter everything through reason, not fear. Naysayers invert that. They make fear feel like logic. Pessimism masquerade as pragmatism, and insecurity appear as intelligence. Epictetus warned, "It's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." Naysayers are masters at distorting perception. They don't see what could go right, they only spotlight what might fail. And if you let them close, they gradually erode your confidence under the guise of realism. How naysayers shape a life that isn't yours. Many people never fail not because they're incapable, but because they never start. Why? Because a voice whispered, "That's not possible. Be careful. Who do you think you are?" And that whisper repeats itself, echoing until it becomes your own inner voice. Before long, your own mind doubts what it was capable of achieving. The naysayer leaves you with safety, but no satisfaction, security, but no self-worth, comfort but no courage. How did you handle them the Stoic way? 1. Separate intention from impact. Not every naysayer is malicious. Some genuinely believe they are protecting you. But the truth is, good intentions don't erase consequences. If their words make you shrink, stall, or stay silent, they are not helping. Be kind, but be clear. I value your concern, but I trust my vision. 2. Filter feedback through logic, not emotion. Before accepting any criticism, pause and ask yourself, is this based on data or fear? Is this coming from experience or projection? Do they walk the path they are trying to talk me out of? If the answer is no, dismiss it quietly but powerfully. Your energy is too valuable to waste on someone else's unfounded doubt. 3. Build an inner wall of conviction. A true Stoic doesn't need universal approval, they need internal alignment. When your intentions are rooted in virtue, growth, truth, and courage, you act without begging for validation. Let your courage speak, louder than their caution. Reflection questions for inner clarity. Who in your life constantly plays devil's advocate, but never advocates for your potential? Have you delayed a dream because someone else couldn't see it? Are you building your life based on your values or someone else's fears? Remember, naysayers don't destroy you. They just plant enough fear for you to destroy yourself. Stoicism gives you the antidote. Self-command, inner conviction, a mind led by reason, not reaction. Next time someone tells you, that's too ambitious, respond only to someone who has stopped dreaming and then keep going. As Seneca said, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Now let's talk about another subtle destroyer, the toxic positivist. We live in a world obsessed with positivity. Smile more. Think happy thoughts. Good vibes only. Sounds uplifting, right? Until it becomes a trap. Not every moment is meant to feel good. And not every truth should be sugar-coated. Some storms are meant to be faced, not denied. The toxic positivist doesn't face the storm. They cover every wound with glitter, call pain low vibration, and treat emotional honesty as weakness. They blind you with relentless sunshine, avoiding reality at all costs. At first glance, they seem cheerful, optimistic, and supportive. But when life gets hard, they respond with phrases like, just stay positive, don't think about it. It could be worse. Everything happens for a reason. What that really says is, I don't want to deal with your reality. I'd rather bypass your pain than help you face it. Let's pretend everything's okay, even if it's not. This isn't support. It's spiritual avoidance. Stoicism has no tolerance for denial disguised as encouragement. Why? Because Stoicism isn't about pretending life is good, it's about preparing for when it's not. It teaches us to face suffering with courage, to see reality clearly even when it's brutal. Marcus Aurelius didn't say ignore hardship. He said you have power over your mind, not outside events. That means we acknowledge the storm, but we don't let it control our inner weather. The toxic positivist does the opposite. They ignore the storm entirely and make you feel guilty for not smiling through disaster. The damage of this forced optimism is subtle but real. When you're around someone who constantly avoids reality, you begin to doubt your own judgment, suppress your feelings, and trade authentic growth for performative happiness. When you're around toxic positivity, you start to stop expressing yourself honestly. You bury emotions instead of processing them. You begin to associate sadness with failure, and that is dangerous. Because suffering that is ignored doesn't vanish. It festers. It turns into anxiety, resentment, isolation, and eventually emotional detachment. The Stoics understood this. Pain is a teacher if you are willing to listen. But the toxic positivist? They tell you to silence that teacher and just smile through it. So how did you handle the toxic positivist the Stoic way? 1. Replace forced positivity with rational optimism. Stoicism isn't about being negative, it's about being prepared. A Stoic asks, what is within my control? What can I learn? What can I endure? You don't need blind faith. You need clarity, vision, and grounded action. 2. Create space for emotional honesty. You are allowed to say, this hurts. This is hard. I don't have it figured out. That is not weakness. That is emotional intelligence. Any relationship that refuses to allow that honesty is not safe for your growth. 3. Stop mistaking denial for wisdom. If someone constantly tells you to avoid negative thoughts, ask yourself, are they helping me grow? Or are they keeping me comfortable in delusion? Pain is real, and Stoicism doesn't hide from it. Stoicism teaches you to train through it, to face it head on, and to learn from it. Reflection questions for mental clarity. Do you feel safe expressing your pain? Or do you feel like you always have to be okay? Have you ever silenced your struggles just to make someone else comfortable? Are you surrounding yourself with people who validate your growth or deny your reality? The Stoic does not deny emotion, he disciplines it through truth. Toxic positivity doesn't heal. It hides, and anything you hide from will one day control you. But when you face life with open eyes, even when it's uncomfortable, you reclaim your power. So the next time someone tells you, just think positive, respond with this instead. I'll think clearly, I'll act wisely, I'll feel deeply, and I'll still rise. That isn't low vibration, that is inner power. Because it's never what happens to you that defines you, it's how you respond that matters. Epictetus reminds us, life will hurt. We will all be betrayed, rejected, overlooked, undervalued. Pain is part of life, but staying stuck in it, that's a choice. The victim doesn't just feel pain, they wear it like a uniform. Their wounds become their identity. Their trauma becomes their conversation starter. Their helplessness becomes their comfort zone. And if you let them too close, they will invite you to join their world, a world where nothing is ever their fault, and everything is someone else's responsibility. When victimhood becomes a lifestyle, there is a huge difference between being a victim and living like one. We all experience injustice, but the Stoic refuses to let that define them. The true victim, however, replays the same story over and over, blames others, blames the system, blames the universe, and avoids growth by saying, This is just how I am now. That is not identity, that is emotional resignation. And if you absorb it long enough, you start to believe maybe healing isn't possible. Maybe your expectations should shrink. Maybe you're broken too. That is the infection of victimhood, not physical, but philosophical. It attacks your sense of agency and convinces you that suffering is a life sentence. Stoicism teaches a different path. Epictetus lost his freedom, his body, and his status, but not his mindset. He said, "Man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that for a moment. True freedom isn't about external circumstances, it's about mastering your own mind. The Stoic doesn't deny pain, but they refuse to be defined by it. To be Stoic is to say, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt. But now, what will I do with it? That's not denial, that's self-command. Now, let's talk about the danger of staying around victim energy. When you keep close to people who live in constant victimhood, something subtle and insidious happens. You become their therapist instead of a friend. You start absorbing their helpless worldview. You feel guilty for having hope, ambition, or drive. And the most dangerous part, you begin to mistake mere survival for true strength. But surviving your past is not the goal, rising from it is. Stoicism is about transcendence. So how did you handle the victim? The Stoic way. 1. Empathize but don't enable. You can care without carrying, support their healing, but never validate their stagnation. Say, I hear your pain, but I also see your power. What do you want to do about it? 2. Draw a line between emotion and identity. It's okay to feel lost, but it's not okay to build your home there. If someone defines themselves only by what hurt them, you must protect your emotional boundaries. Their story is not yours to relive. 3. Encourage ownership, not outsourcing. Real healing begins where blame ends. Ask them, what's in your control now? How can you respond differently this time? Who do you want to become? These are Stoic questions. They reopen the door to inner power. If the other person is willing to walk through it. Reflection questions for inner strength. Do you feel like you're constantly managing someone else's pain while ignoring your own? Have you held back your joy because someone in your life always makes it about their struggle? Are you being pulled into someone else's victim cycle? Or are you inviting them into your own path of healing? Victimhood isn't a personality, it's a phase you're meant to outgrow. The victim wants sympathy more than transformation. They seek validation for their story, not elevation from it. But if you stay in their orbit too long, you'll forget that you are allowed to outgrow your past. You'll stop rising because you're too busy rescuing. Stoicism reminds us you are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by how you rebuild. So don't sink just to prove empathy. Rise, and let that be the invitation. Epictetus also said, "He who is not a slave to another's opinion is truly free." Not all threats shout. Some come disguised as kindness, compliments laced with obligation, support that subtly erodes your confidence, smiles that cost you your voice. You're not being attacked, you're being manipulated. And that's what makes it dangerous. The manipulator doesn't raise their voice, they raise your self-doubt. They twist your emotions so that you can't tell if you're the problem or if they are. Manipulation isn't about power, it's about confusion. Their goal isn't domination, it's disorientation. They want you second-guessing your decisions, apologizing for your boundaries, feeling guilty for saying no. If you stay confused, you stay compliant. And here's the trap. The more emotionally intelligent you are, the more they exploit that. They know you'll listen. They know you'll care. They know you'll hesitate before walking away. And if you don't recognize it, you'll find yourself over-explaining, over-giving, over-apologizing, and slowly losing yourself in their fog. Now, let's talk about another silent threat, the manipulator. The one who slowly chips away at your sense of self without raising a hand. Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Think about that. Your mental landscape shapes everything: your actions, your resilience, your peace. But a manipulator, they don't want you to trust your own thoughts. They want to insert theirs, subtly undermining your confidence until you find yourself looking to them for clarity. Their power doesn't come from force, it comes from corruption of your inner compass. Stoicism teaches that true freedom isn't about external liberty. It's about mental clarity. It's the ability to think for yourself, feel without distortion, and act aligned with your own values, not someone else's agenda. So how can you tell if you're dealing with a manipulator? You feel guilty for setting boundaries. You find yourself over-explaining choices that shouldn't require justification. They reward compliance and withdraw approval when you assert yourself. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, your self-worth erodes, and you have no idea why. This isn't connection, it's emotional colonization. And if you don't guard your mind, someone else will occupy it. Here's the Stoic way to handle manipulators. 1. Reclaim your internal authority. You don't owe explanations for what protects your peace. If someone makes you feel bad for honoring your boundaries, that's not love, that's leverage. A Stoic knows, my peace is mine to preserve, not yours to negotiate. To observe their patterns, not their words. Manipulators are masters of language. They say the right things, but their actions repeat the same behavior. Don't be fooled by promises. Watch their patterns, then decide with clarity if their presence aligns with your principles. 3. Enforce boundaries without emotional leakage. You don't need anger. You don't need to prove anything. Simply act. Walk away. Limit access. Speak clearly. Then let your absence reinforce what your words already said. This is strategic detachment, Stoicism's ultimate form of emotional protection. Reflection questions for mental and emotional integrity. Do you feel emotionally lighter or heavier after interacting with them? Are you doing things out of alignment, just to maintain peace? Have you started shrinking your voice to preserve their comfort? Remember, a manipulator doesn't take your power, they convince you to give it away. The manipulator doesn't need force. They just need access. But you have a choice. The Stoic way isn't to fight for control. It's to remove the need for their approval altogether. Once you master your emotions, once you take full ownership of your mind, you become unmanipulable. That, my friend, is true inner power. We've journeyed from complainers to manipulators. But there's one last silent threat, the overindulgent. They wear you down not with anger or manipulation, but with distraction, temptation, and a subtle erosion of discipline. They're fun, charming, always laughing. They say things like, "Come on, don't be so serious. Life's too short. Treat yourself. You can't be disciplined all the time." They don't yell. They don't insult. Yet their influence is quietly corrosive. This is the overindulgent person who makes mediocrity feel like a lifestyle, and weakness sound like freedom. They promote pleasure over purpose, escape over endurance, instant gratification over inner growth. They don't call it weakness, they call it living in the moment. They call it being free. They call it self-love. But let's be honest, what they really mean is, I'm avoiding discomfort. I fear discipline. I don't want to confront the version of myself that could be better. And if you're not careful, this subtle erosion seeps in, and soon you start calling your own compromises balance. Here's what Stoicism teaches about self-indulgence. The Stoics weren't anti-pleasure. They understood that pleasure, without principle, leads to slavery. Epicurus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." But you cannot be free if you are a slave to your passions. Overindulgence is not freedom, it's dependence, cleverly packaged. When you surround yourself with people who normalize laziness, binge behaviors, irresponsibility, or emotional numbing disguised as self-care, you begin to build a lifestyle that feels good but slowly rots you from the inside. The cost of tolerating the overindulgent is subtle but deadly. You delay your goals because there's always tomorrow. You avoid discomfort, and with it, growth. You stop demanding excellence from yourself because no one around you does. Soon, mediocrity becomes the culture, and you stop rising not because you lack potential, but because no one reminds you that you can. The overindulgent rarely destroy your life in one dramatic moment. No, they quietly sabotage your standards. And that's enough to keep you from becoming who you were truly meant to be. So how did you handle the overindulgent? The Stoic way. 1. Don't argue or try to discipline them. You don't need to convince anyone to change. Instead, become the counterexample. Let your routine, your clarity, and your focus speak louder than their indulgent noise. 2. Reframe discipline as liberation. To the undisciplined, structure looks like a prison. To the Stoic, it's the path to freedom. Discipline isn't punishment. It's the ultimate expression of self-respect and autonomy. 3. Protect your inner environment. If people around you ridicule structure, belittle growth, or avoid challenge, change the room. You don't need to become a monk, but you do need to guard your momentum like your life depends on it because, truthfully, it does. Reflection questions for personal power. Have you ever excused self-sabotage by calling it self-love? Who in your life encourages comfort over commitment? Are you living with intention or simply reacting to pleasure? Remember, true freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like, it's having the strength to do what serves your highest self. The overindulgent mean no harm, but they normalize the habits that keep you average. In a world where ease is worshipped, discipline is rebellion. Live with restraint. Speak with purpose. Build a life so full of meaning that indulgence feels like a cheap substitute for what you were truly meant to do. Epicurus reminds us, associate with those who help you become the best version of yourself. You've seen it now, not just the obvious enemies, but the subtle ones, the sweet ones. The ones who drain your spirit in whispers, not screams. Some call them friends, but their patterns tell a different story. They complain and call it connection. They lie and call it protection. They manipulate and call it love. They normalize weakness and call it freedom. And you've spent enough time tolerating what you know in your gut is eroding your soul. You're not just cutting people off. You're reclaiming yourself. This isn't about becoming bitter. It's about being clear. Because every single moment you spend explaining your boundaries to someone who repeatedly crosses them is a moment stolen from your growth, your peace, and your greatness. You don't need more explanations, you need more execution. You don't need more approval, you need more alignment. So what happens when you finally let them go? You create space for emotional intelligence, for self-worth, for inner peace, for spiritual discipline, and for a high-performance mindset that no longer bends to low-frequency energy. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them regret. Your silence will speak louder than any goodbye ever could. Here's what you do now. If this video lit a fire under your emotional boundaries, like it. Subscribe to Stoic Capsule for daily wisdom that strengthens and fortifies your mind. Share this with someone who's finally ready to step away from what weakens them. And drop a comment. I protect my peace. I protect my path. Let the world know that you are no longer available for chaos. Remember this. You don't rise by being accepted. You rise by becoming unshakable. Walk in silence, stand in truth, and rise like no one ever saw it coming.